All right, I'm recording now, I think. Welcome, everybody, to week 9 of the Age of Discovery, Navigators and Heroes Who Changed History. The course, this is a 16-week course, so we are now past halfway, which is unbelievable that we've already talked about the Portuguese Empire. We're now a little over halfway through the voyages of Columbus, even though we've only gotten to the first voyage. The next few will go a little bit quicker. And then starting in 2 weeks, we're going to jump over to Magellan and learn about his circumnavigation of the globe and all of the things that he encountered and went through. And during the rest of the course, so a lot of the supplemental content is going to start venturing off into topics that are related to the Age of Discovery, maybe not exactly related to Columbus, because there's a lot that happened because of Columbus that I want to talk about and get to. So we'll be doing that in the supplemental content. Um, Cortez, Pizarro, other explorers and conquistadors that sort of took the torch that Columbus had carried for a long time and then took it even further to help expand the Spanish Empire in the New World. And so some of our supplemental content will start taking a different track. And then when we jump to Magellan, the supplemental content will be mostly focused on him at first. And then as we get deeper into his story, we'll start branching out into other Age of Discovery heroes, navigators, explorers that helped pave the way too. So even though Columbus and Magellan will be our main characters, along the way we'll introduce you to some of the other people who also were important in the Age of Discovery. So that's a little bit of a foreshadow of where we're going. I'll start sharing my screen. I just got a notification on my screen that says my internet connection is unstable. We've had a little bit of weather here in Portugal, so hopefully it will hold up enough that we won't have any issues during our class. I have had in other classes, and maybe this one too, once or twice the internet connection has dropped. If that happens, just hang tight. I'll join back again. I don't know, sometimes my connection speed's super high and then it drops off for 10 seconds. And so the call drops me, but I'll jump back on. So don't go anywhere if I have any troubles. And if I do, I apologize. With that said, is my screen sharing? Thumbs up if you can see. Okay, perfect. All right. So for today, we'll start off with a few of my thoughts, and my thoughts will build off of some of the things that you guys said in the My Favorite Things. I have a few questions for you that we'll consider. Things like, is Columbus's journeys, do they relate to, or are they parallel to Bartolomeu Dias from Portugal? If so, or if not, why? We'll talk about the Pinzon brothers a little bit. Do they get enough credit for the discovery? Um, and so I'll have a few questions, a few things for us to discuss, and then we'll get to a few of my favorite things, the things that you mentioned. And I think that a lot of those, well, all of them actually, warrant an additional discussion. Talk about uh, what your thoughts and feelings are and how they relate to us and what we can learn. I'm really excited for today's topics. All right, for next week, we will be reading chapters 5 and 6. There may be a few portions that I will make optional reading, and if so, then I will send your parents an email again, like I did for chapter 2, I think, where you can talk to them about which portions are needed to be read. I'll send an email. I don't think that's the case, but I will let you know later today about that. Supplemental content will be TBD, to be determined. We'll get a little bit more on Columbus's additional journeys, and we're going to start learning about the conquistadors and other Spanish explorers that, again, what I was saying, sort of Columbus took the torch of Spain far. Others came along, took the torch and carried it a little further. And so we'll start learning about some of those before we transition to Magellan in a couple weeks. All right. So I want to ask the question, have any of you guys ever been to the Caribbean islands? Any island in the Caribbean? Has anybody ever been there? Kai, tell us about your experience.
I went to Jamaica like 3 years ago with my family and got to stay at a resort and do a bunch of hikes and went up a waterfall. So that was really, really fun.
Was it cool?
Yeah, it was really cool.
Nice. And would you recommend it to other people going to visit Jamaica?
Yes.
How come?
Our little brother got faces. Yes, I would. Well, it's really fun. The people are nice. Sisters. Sorry, it's really loud in here.
You're fine.
I have a lot of siblings, so yeah, it's really fun.
Cool. Excellent.
My sister wants me to tell you about my little brother who but it if it's okay with you, I can share it at the end of class or not at all. It's off topic, but my sister wants or never mind actually.
All right. At the end of class, how about that? Well, you can share at the end of class. Tell her thank you for the input. We encourage participation here, so thank you to your sister for that. And we'll get that at the end. So it looks like a few other people have been to a Caribbean island. Is it beautiful? Would you recommend it to other people? Is it something that was like normal compared to what you see or have lived? So I have not been to the Caribbean yet. I hope to someday, but I was looking up pictures of the Cuban or Jamaican or not Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. I was looking at the coastline. What would it look like from a boat as I were sailing? If I were on the Santa Maria, for example, this carrack going across the sea, and I encounter something that looks just like this. That would be pretty remarkable, right? I love some of the descriptions that Columbus gave about how clear the water was, how beautiful it was, the ports, the beaches, everything. And so as I've looked at that and have sort of imagined myself going to those places and wondering like thinking about how awesome it would be to hang out on the beach there. Anyway, I've thought about those things. Grace, let's go to your comment first before I keep going.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, looks like your hand's raised.
Okay. Okay, so I'm curious, where are the Caribbean islands?
In the Caribbean, it's the places. Let me see. I wonder if I could pull something.
I actually kind of have a map of it, ish. I mean, I have a map of the Spanish Main. I don't know if that's the same thing.
I can share my screen real quick, or I guess I'm already sharing my screen. I'll drop this over. Caribbean islands are here. So let's see if I can expand it. My computer is not cooperating. Huh. It's paused for me. Let's see if I can get something else. So it's here in the Gulf of Mexico. You can kind of see it. I apologize, it's not pulling up for me. But it's like Cuba, Puerto Rico. Oh, here we go. Maybe my computer is finally thinking.
So is it
And
kind of yeah, so is it kind of off the tip of Florida, right?
exactly.
That goes down and yeah. So
Yeah,
Puerto
all
Rico,
of these,
stuff
like
like that, yeah.
Trinidad, Tobago, St. Lucia, and Antigua, Barbuda. I can't even read anymore. Jamaica, all of these islands, Aruba, like we hear about all these places that are like exotic, beautiful beaches, warm weather, places to go hang out in the summer. Like these are places people still travel from all around the world to go and enjoy the beaches and the sun and the locations there.
I did not know Jamaica was that small.
Yeah,
It's
well,
tiny.
that's the size of it. Compared to Cuba, it is small. I think it's a pretty large island, though. Truman, go ahead.
Um, isn't it like next to the Bermuda Triangle? Isn't that where it is?
The Bermuda Triangle would be somewhere in here. I think Bermuda is one of these near the
Yeah.
Bahamas.
So, is it like next to that?
It's in that area. So the Bermuda Triangle is somewhere in this area. But that is where the Caribbean islands are. These all of these islands here. This is where Columbus was, and it was insanely beautiful. And it's still a place that is unlike any other place in the world. And so it's interesting that when Columbus was visiting those places, and he was writing home about it, he felt like he had to embellish a little bit about how great it was because, I mean, it's already pretty great, right? Grace, go ahead.
So, me and my family went on a cruise, and I think we were in the Bahama area. So I guess I've either been close to it. I know we stopped at an island, but I don't know if it was like the cruise kind of owned it, so it's not really like a, I don't know, but I guess we were kind of in the area. So,
I mean, that's exactly what Columbus would have been encountering. And so it's just interesting as I've thought about him writing back and sort of embellishing how the people were and how much gold was available and all these things. I mean, it seems like he could write home and just say, "This is a place unlike any other in the whole world. You're going to love it," and that would be enough. So I wanted to ask, why do you guys think Columbus felt like he had to embellish the truth? When he was writing back, writing his letters to Ferdinand and Isabella, why did he need to feel like he needed to embellish a little bit? Braden, go ahead.
Probably a bit because he wanted to make a really good impression. Ferdinand and Isabella were already pretty reluctant to let him go. Um, he wanted to make like a really good impression that they would understand. So he can't just say it's different and it's really cool, you should come see it, because then they're gonna be confused on
Yeah.
like how good it actually is and what it is. But if he makes it in language that they understand, like tons of gold kind of thing, lots of resources, that they're gonna want to like. First of all, they're gonna give him a lot more praise for his discovery. Second of all, they're gonna actually want to come down and see it and settle it. Um, but yeah, so if he doesn't embellish and he just says that it's not, it's gonna he probably thought it would turn out better for him if he like made it sound like a better place.
Yeah, I think you're right. He was a lot of it, and sort of maybe putting words into your mouth too. He was writing this so that he could get more money and do it again, so that they didn't view him as a failure. Do you guys remember what happened to Bartolomeu Diaz, the Portuguese explorer, who made it further than anyone else had, but he didn't quite make the goal that the king had set for him, right? And so what happened to Bartolomeu Diaz when he got home? Even though he had gone so far, he was sort of demoted, right? He went from being the king's top sailor, top explorer to sort of being a guy that people could rely on that would end up piloting a boat for Vasco da Gama and others. And I think Columbus might have been a little bit of afraid. What happens if I say I'm going to do all these things and it doesn't actually come true? Then what for my legacy? So I think the author does a lot to indicate that he was writing so that he could try and prove himself, try and prove that he achieved the goal that he was setting out to do. Um, just some of the thoughts that I had is that Columbus exaggerated his discoveries to secure his reputation and maintain royal support, just like what Braden was saying, right? He had said, I'm going to go find gold. I'm going to find the Indies. I'm going to find all these spices and I'm going to bring them back. And Spain is going to be so rich and so powerful because of the findings. And he ultimately didn't find that. And the author hints at that Columbus, his survival as an explorer depended on politics and persuasion, maybe even more so than his seamanship, being able to travel and go across the ocean. Do you guys think that Ferdinand and Isabella would have funded him had he told the truth, like 100% the truth? Do you think that he could have gotten a second voyage? Daniel, what's the emoji face on your screen? Is that a positive, a negative, or
I mean, they probably would have been like, well, it does sound pretty good, but I mean, it isn't good enough. And so I think they would have funded for maybe just a few ships to go and colonize it, but they won't fund him to go like explore more. They would just send other more reliable sailors to actually see if it was good, and then if it was as great as Columbus said, then
so you
and
so you think if he told the truth, he may have gotten a second voyage, maybe? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, maybe a second, but I don't think maybe a third or fourth.
Fair enough. What do the rest of you guys think? Thanks, Daniel. Uh, and I agree. What do you guys think? Does anybody else have a different opinion? Christopher, go ahead.
I think they would be like, no, I don't think so. I don't think they would give him a voyage, you know,
Yeah. I mean, it
because
was expensive, right? And ultimately,
yeah,
just if we're looking at only the timeline of Christopher Columbus, and we don't take into account what happens after Christopher Columbus, it was a huge expensive thing that they did not recover the money for during Columbus's lifetime. And so I think that either one of you could be correct. We don't know because he didn't tell the whole truth, and he was able to convince them that there was a lot more there. And ultimately, there was a lot more there. They just hadn't found it yet. Um, and so it's interesting to think about what would have happened if he had told the truth. Do you think that he thought he was telling the truth? I mean, he still, when he got back, still claimed that he had found the Indian found India, that he wasn't that far from Japan. Do you think he believed his own exaggerations, or do you think a lot of it was just trying to manipulate the truth to get the power or the prestige or more money or more voyages? James, what do you think?
I think he had made his mind up to finding India, that he couldn't believe a different way. And then when the possibility that he didn't find it, it kind of frightened him. So he just told himself that he had found it and told others to solidify that and to still get the honor.
So he had convinced himself so much that he had found it that he believed. So maybe he didn't think he was exaggerating that much, right? He really was close to
I'm gonna get a
Japan, just
blanket. Oh.
didn't quite make it there yet. What's that, Daniel? Oh, must have been an excited utterance made not knowing that mute was turned off. But yeah, I think you might be right, James. I I think he may have died believing that he had found islands that were just barely off of Japan. And had he only gone a little further, maybe he could have found all of those things. And so it's hard to tell if he believed if it was truly, if he had an exaggeration or if that's really exactly what he thought. Maybe he was posturing himself politically, trying to get more money from the crown, trying to maintain his prestige, his titles, and things like that. We'll find out what happens a little bit more in the future voyages that we're going to read about, because not everything works out for Columbus. Um, Even though he was making these sales pitches that, his letters sounded like sales pitches, and the author, as I say in this number two, notes that Columbus carefully crafts them to make failure sound like success, like with the sinking of the Santa Maria. Totally an accident, right? That should have been avoided. It wasn't, but Columbus sort of twisted and spun the story a little bit to say, oh, it was totally an unavoidable accident, and it was actually the hand of God caused this wreck so that we would have the materials to start building a fort here and start settling here and bringing Christianity to these people. And so he's sort of spinning things, and maybe he believes it all. Maybe it's not spinning at all. Maybe this is the total truth, but the way that the author sort of describes it is that he is taking these things that happen and sort of putting a positive spin onto them. And what does that reveal? Just reading my question here on number two. What does this reveal, if anything, about exploration as a performance of power and money? Why do you think he would have spun the truth or had tried to have an optimistic view in that case? Maybe he didn't feel like he was spinning it all. Maybe that's what he truly believed. But why would that be important to have that view of it instead of just, we lost our biggest ship? That was a disaster. How do you think the optimism helped him and his men during that time and on their voyages? David, go ahead.
By that point, I feel like his men were kind of like, not loving him, just kind of not like, oh, this isn't India, this isn't what Marco Polo described. And so he probably had to like keep morale up by just like saying, oh, we couldn't have avoided this. Like this was so important.
Yeah, I like that insight. Do you think that that's important as a leader to be able to have that optimism to help maintain the morale? I think
I
I think
mean, you can go up to a point, like you can be optimistic, but until a certain point, and then you're like, you're lying.
yeah. I think yeah, spot on, both of you. Daniel, go ahead.
Um, I just want to ask a question. Did we ever get the remains of the Santa Maria out from that bay?
I I'm not sure. I That's something I'm gonna have to look up after class. Because I they took got the remains of the Santa Maria. So they took the wood that they had left over and used that to help build the fort. And that was one of the ways that and I don't know if this is spinning, making it sound optimistic. I mean, I think if I were in this moment and I were Columbus, I may have thought the same thing, like, okay, perfect. Now we have the resources that we need to build a fort. I'd been thinking about building a fort. I wasn't sure where I was going to get the materials. Now we have all of the wood from the Santa Maria wreckage that we can use to sort of fashion a fort right here. And so they did recover a lot of the wood and used it to build a fort, but I'm not sure if we have. There's Dr. Pablo. Hi, Pablo. I'm not sure if we have anything left over from it now. And I don't know, Daniel, was your question if they recovered it or if we have access to it now?
If we have access and if it's at some museum or something?
Yeah,
And
I'll,
is the fort still standing? So do we have any pieces of the Santa Maria, the real one?
my guess is no. But I think that you and I can both look that up after class and then let everybody know what we find. I think that's a great thing to look into. Christopher, your hand's up. Go ahead.
It's actually me. I couldn't resist. But in these expeditions, one of the important people that they had was always a carpenter. And these carpenters were just amazing at being able to reshape and refactor things into other things. So, like you are saying, the Santa Maria was probably dismantled, most of it, or probably all of it, in order to make the fort. They could have used everything. They would reuse the timber, the mast, the sails, the ropes, everything there. And as far as the fort goes, I don't think that there is any surviving part of the fort because usually what they would do is they build the fort with wood first, temporarily, and then they would dismantle that and rebuild with stone. Okay. And we are talking about over 500 years. Okay, so yeah, there's nothing remaining of the original.
I'd be curious if that is the way that they went about it. I'd be curious, Daniel, and we can even look this up still afterwards. So the wood might not be there. Maybe there's still, I don't know, part of the foundation of the fort if they got that far. I don't think that they got that far in this case because we'll find in the next chapters when they get back the 43 men that they left behind. We'll see what happened. Not positive news when they come back. But we'll read about that coming up. But it's interesting just to think about those things, right? And was he embellishing the truth? Is it something he really believed? And I think it's difficult because his writing wasn't so succinct. Sometimes he's trying to hide the truth a little bit. In some cases, it's so that other people can't retrace his steps and find these islands. They need him to go do it because he's the only guy. Sometimes he is sort of doing a sales pitch where he's pushing the truth a little bit to make it more desirable for Ferdinand and Isabella to give more money for future voyages. And so, because sometimes he's sort of pushing the truth and hiding the truth and things, it's hard to tell exactly what he was truly thinking. But I think if I were in this situation and I'm an optimistic person, I think I would be wanting to believe that I had found what I set out to find. I'd be looking for reasons why we were there instead of being so skeptical of things that I had believed for such a long time. And I think Columbus felt like he was sort of called by God, and I think he was. So I agree with him. Called to this sort of calling to be that person, to push that, not envelope, but to sort of push the frontier, to go into the unknown. He was the right person for the job, and he felt that he was too. And so I think it was hard for him to sort of come to terms with an idea that maybe it wasn't the right place. Christopher, your hand's up. Go ahead.
So talking about the Santa Maria, like 3 weeks ago or something like that, I mentioned my model of it, and I have it right here if you want me to just like show you it real fast. Sorry, the
Nice.
blur. Let's see, one sec. So this is the ship. It's like pretty big and it has like the tiller and everything, the sails, and like on the deck it has this little uh like boat, little rowboat with paddles, and it has like little ladders going like from the deck to deck, and it's super cool.
That is cool. Even the lateen cell on the back, just like a true Carrick. Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Hmm.
I in thinking about this story and thinking about Columbus, he is a hero of mine. I'm so grateful that he had the courage to do what he did. Sometimes I disagree with the ways that he went about things, and we're going to get into chapters that are going to be things that I definitely disagree with. But I mean, I have a different history and a different upbringing than Columbus did, and we'll talk about that. But I also find that as an optimistic person, and sometimes I feel like, and this is a safe space, right? Our class is a safe space, so I can say some things and I can admit some things. I sometimes am a little bit prideful myself. And I've found, and maybe some of you are too, I think pride often identifies or it sort of shapes the way we tell stories. Have you guys ever heard of the saying, like the tales of catching a fish? Like the truly you catch a fish, sorry, this size, and then the next time you tell the story, it's this size. And then the next time the story's told, until eventually you caught like a whale, right? When you're really talking about a little trout that you had caught in a river in Utah somewhere. Sometimes stories get embellished a little bit. And that's something that I think that I have had to overcome. So I want to tell you a story. When I was just out of school at Utah, I graduated from Utah State University, and my degree was called industrial hygiene. So it's public health with an industrial hygiene emphasis. So my job was to go to workplace sites and do security checks, like making sure people were working safe with chemicals or with noise or like vibration to make sure that their nervous systems weren't going to be damaged based on the things they're using. I was asked to go to ABC's studios in Manhattan, down in one of the rooms, like so this is part of what I would do is like the cameramen would go out and do filming in different places, right? So you see like news crews going to react to a hurricane or something like that. And when their camera equipment gets wet, they have to take it back to this place at their studios and put them in sort of an oven so that they can safely dry out all of their electronics. Um, and part of that job, they had. I apologize, I'm breaking up, but I just keep getting these things. My connection is not right. So hopefully, if my story doesn't go through, we can play it back on a record. I think hopefully my device will be recording it. Anyway, one of the things they were worried about is that chemicals, as they're heating up their equipment, might be getting onto the surfaces. And so I was asked to go and take the survey to make sure the surfaces weren't, that harmful chemicals weren't being deposited on the surfaces of this room so that people would be getting sick. My boss said, Trent, we need you to go and do this. Do you know how to do it? And I was just out of school, trying to prove myself, wanting him to think I was so smart and so capable. I said, yeah, I know how to do that. But guess what? I didn't know how to do it. I didn't. And so I Googled it and I looked up, tried to do the research, and I did not want to tell him I didn't know how to do it. And so I went to this job. I did the task. Fortunately, Google taught me right. Even this was like back when the internet wasn't as robust as it is now. Fortunately, I did everything right. The whole project turned out just fine. But I had some moments of serious anxiety about why did I tell him that I know how to do this? I don't know how to do it. And I didn't dare go and admit to him that I didn't know. There was a chance I could have done it wrong, totally wrong. I mean, fortunately, that didn't happen. But I just think it's interesting sometimes in our lives, sometimes the pride that we feel or pride that we have gets in the way. In my case, I learned a lot from that experience. So moving forward, when I didn't know something, I would just say, "Oh, I don't know how to do that. Can you tell me?" And it'd be like a 5-minute conversation, and I'd learn how to do this new skill. And I learned it the right way from someone who knew. And I still, even today, I feel like I'm a pretty smart guy, but I work with inventors all the time. And so when they're telling me about their inventions, I now feel a lot more comfortable now saying, I don't know what that term means. Can you describe that? And then they describe it, and I don't think they think anything less of me. And I just have been comparing my experiences with my own pride and admitting I don't know things and being teachable and humble to the experiences that Columbus was going through. And I think it's interesting to think about. If he would not have embellished, if he would have just said, listen, we didn't find all this gold, but these islands would be amazing for growing sugar. They have this stuff called tobacco, which, I mean, none of us are using, right? But it became this huge cash crop that was so important for Spain down the road, not yet because they didn't recognize it. But had he been truthful, I wonder how things would have happened. Maybe they would have given him another voyage, like Daniel said. Maybe they would have found everything anyway. And so I just sort of the lesson I'm taking for myself from this is let's be honest, right? Let's be truthful. We don't need to embellish our stories. We don't need the size of the fish that we catch is still really cool that we caught it. It doesn't need to be a well or something, right? We don't need to stretch the truth like Columbus was here. I think it's so important for us to be honest and truthful and humble and teachable. I hope that you don't go through experiences like I did in New York at ABC, or maybe it's NBC. I honestly don't remember. It was one of those where I was really trying to figure out making sure I was doing something right when it would have just been 1 inch of humility saying, I don't know, can you tell me? It would have been a 3-minute conversation, would have saved me a lot of trouble. But yeah, don't be like me. Just be teachable and humble, and uh, don't be like Columbus in that respect, anyway. Truman, your hand's up. Go ahead.
I'm just curious about like what type of inventions would you talk about with other people? Like,
All sorts of stuff. As a patent attorney, I meet with inventors all the time who are on the cutting edge of technology. Ways to make AI better is mostly what I do right now. Um, Ways of improving the computing so that AI can make better predictions and better, more accurate things. That's mostly what I do right now. And so oftentimes things will come up where they'll say a term, and I'll say, "What? I'm not sure what that term means. Can you teach it to me or tell me about it?" And they totally, it just is part of the conversation. And I mean, I could say, "Oh, yeah, 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 I know that," and then write a whole patent application, which takes me like 25 hours. And then they would come back and say, "Oh, I don't know what you're describing here, but this is not our invention." I mean, that would be a big problem for me. And I think a lot of times in our lives, we just have this kind of temptation, like I think what Columbus was facing of, I need to tell people that this is what happened so that they will like me more, or I need to tell them all of these things that weren't really true so that they'll like my story more. They'll think have more power or something like that. I don't know. But let's avoid that. I think that that's something that we can learn from Columbus's writings. I don't know if it would have affected any of his future. It probably wouldn't have. They probably would have given him another voyage, like what Daniel was saying. But we'll never know. But we need to be humble and teachable, and not let our pride take us into areas that where we're doing things and embellishing things like Columbus. Maybe we're running a little bit low on time, so maybe we'll talk about this another time. But I think there are some parallels between Columbus and Bartolomeu Diaz of things. If you remember in the story, Columbus was in Lisbon when Bartolomeu Dias came back, and he saw what happened to Bartolomeu Dias when he got somewhere, didn't fully make the goal, and then was demoted. And as he saw that all happening, and then eventually went over to Spain um, and got money from Ferdinand and Isabella. But I wonder some of the parallels between those two, and I wonder how much Bartolomew's story affected Columbus and affected the way he wrote, the way he described his own journey, so that he could avoid the same fate. So that's something we could talk about another time. Also, do you guys think that the Pinzon brothers get enough credit? And I'll say it was interesting to me because the Pinzon brothers were so important. Um, but it's interesting that when I was looking for supplemental content about the Pinzon brothers, everything I found was Spanish. Why do you think we focus so much on Columbus and we don't really even talk about the Pinzon brothers, who were extremely important? Martin Pinzon was the captain of the Pinta, and we don't really talk about him in America. I wonder, do you think they get enough credit? Daniel, go ahead.
I actually never knew that the Pinzon brothers sailed with Columbus. I just thought there was some other explorer. So I just thought it was Columbus and two other weirdo captains.
Weirdo
I
captain.
didn't know. I
Yeah,
didn't know it was the Pinzon brothers.
right. Yeah, I totally am agreeing. I agree with you. Like, we are in America. Our history focuses on Columbus, right? But his voyages would not have happened without the Pinzon brothers. They were, if you watch the video, they were so important. They were traders. They were sort of Spain's best guys at the time, right? And Columbus was having a hard time recruiting a crew. And so along come the Pinzon brothers, who everyone admired and respected, and they start looking for a crew. And suddenly people are interested. Oh, the Pinzon brothers are going? Yeah, I'll go. Those guys are great sailors. I'll go with them. And they were very much a part of the discovery. So it's interesting in Spain, if you guys ever go to Spain and go to some of these Age of Discovery sites, the Pinzon brothers are getting almost as much credit as Columbus. They view them as a team, not just Columbus doing it. Although, I mean, he does get most of the credit there. But Martin Pinzon is also revered and admired as a key person in making that all possible. He's the one that persuaded local sailors to join. He contributed a lot of the money. He owned the Pinta, or at least secured the Pinta. And so when he got over to the Caribbean islands, he sort of took off and started doing his own discovery, his own exploration. I think he viewed himself as just part of the team. I think thought he was an equal to Columbus and just was fine going off on his own. I'll meet you back in Spain kind of thing, right? Um, so just an interesting thought. Does America give the Pinzon brothers enough credit? In someone who grows up in Spain would say absolutely America does not give enough credit because they view them as almost equals. Columbus was definitely in charge, the Pinzon brothers maybe a step below, but without them, nothing would have happened, which is probably true and probably the correct way to view the history of it. But it's something that we sort of gloss over. So interesting to think about as we read more and more. So after the first voyage, Martin Pinzon comes back. He tells the story to Ferdinand and Isabella. Columbus gives his version of it, which is a little different than what Martin Pinzon had relayed to them. But then Martin dies and is unable to really carry forward his own version of things. And so Columbus's version is what is carried on. But just interesting. I don't know if they get enough of the credit in our own history, in the American version of the story. on to a few of your favorite things with the short time we have left. What did you guys think of these chapters? What do you think of Columbus? What do you think of his discoveries? Just looking at the last one, I think this was from David. I thought it was sad how Columbus saw the Indians as more resources and not real people. I think this is how a lot of Europeans felt about other races and cultures during the age of exploration. Absolutely. I think it's interesting how these people accepted them differently than those in India accepted their gifts. There's a lot of different things too. But something I've thought about as I am an American living in a foreign country, I feel like I'm I don't know, I think I'm smart, kind of. Um, but because I don't speak the language very well, it's hard to communicate that. And so I often feel like like I am not smart. And I think I'm viewed as not being smart because I don't speak the language. And I also sometimes think as an American, I am so proud to be an American that I think, oh, we have everything. Like I am so privileged. I'm like up here and everyone else is a step below, right? And so I think sometimes there's this tendency to do the same thing, um, to place ourselves above others. And is that right? Should we do that? I don't think I do it on purpose. Sometimes I think it's just a natural thing, but Columbus was doing that. Do you think that's right? Daniel's got a thumbs down. Why a thumbs down, Daniel?
Well, I mean, it is. I don't like how he was super duper mean and hi Jacob, but I just always thought that when he was mean to the native people or Indians, I always thought, why? I mean, they're people like you. They might have different skin, but and on Truman's little kind of picture in the background, he has Abraham Lincoln. So it kind of ties in because America fought a whole war to get rid of slavery. And if Columbus had just not even started it then and there, then it would have been much easier to get rid of it. So
Yeah.
it's not fair that he did that to Columbus. Sorry, Indians.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something that I think it's sad too. And I wish that it would have been different. And we'll learn a little bit more about that in the future week or two. Um, but I think it's something that we need to be careful of too, that we don't subconsciously start thinking, oh, we're Americans, we're better, or just different things like that. I think something to be aware of. And looking at Columbus's story, using that as something to kind of raise our awareness to be loving and kind to everybody, um, no matter what. Just like what Daniel was saying, we're all people. So let's make sure that we're not falling into that same thing too. Because I think it's a natural tendency to think that we are better. I feel like it around people in Portugal that they are viewing themselves as that. And it's just, I think something that we need to be careful of. Let's see. I think it was cool how nice the Indians were to Columbus at first, even though he was a stranger. I also think that was cool. How was his reception different than that of Vasco da Gama? How were their, how did the natives that they encountered, what was that? How are they different? And why do you think that they were different? if they were different. James, go ahead.
Vasco da Gama's experience was a lot different because they had a lot of hatred towards him because they were mainly Muslims and the Muslims and Christians didn't get along. But the Indians and Columbus, neither of them knew anything about each other, so they were more fascinated with each other's culture. And the Indians they thought that Columbus were gods, so they knew that they didn't really have any chance against them. So that's why they were more timid and welcoming.
Yeah, and interesting that you bring that. So they wanted to give them all of these gifts, right? And it was so much that Columbus even said, all right, you have to give something in return. You can't just take whatever they're offering. You have to give something back, which was very different also from the experience where Vasco da Gama had all these gifts and then he was sort of made fun of because his gifts weren't good enough. Um, it's totally the opposite in that regard. Awesome, James. Thanks for that. Daniel, go ahead.
I actually think that the natives were, since they, as you said, if they were any different, I learned a few differences in one of the videos you sent us, like the hour-and-a-half long one. I did learn that the natives only really hunted for survival, while in the known European world, people usually hunted for sport, and the animals were becoming more endangered, while in America, they were growing and spreading, which helped the Indians grow and spread. And so they worked with nature, they didn't compete with it. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think when they saw these white men in a wooden boat, they thought, that is big. I mean, the Indians must have been like, how do you do that? We can make canoes, but we can't make that thing. And they were also really surprised about the sails. They thought it was flying.
Hmm.
So I really love how I think they treated them kindly and almost like gods because, well, they've never seen that thing before. I think if something like to us, a white cloud and some angels came down, but they weren't actually angels, we would think they were. And I think that's how it was to the Indians. So it's just really interesting to see how they viewed the white men at first. They were probably like Jacob. Like he said that they were also kind of timid because, I mean, these men were wearing steel and carrying guns and crossbows. Jacob, please shush.
I agree. I totally agree. I think that it's just interesting the different experiences because I think had the experiences been similar, history would have been totally different. I also loved that they thought that they were from the sky and that they were gods. I think there are other parallels that we could talk about, maybe in more of a church setting. Talking, why might these people also think that they were gods that were coming, angels that were coming from the sky? But anyway, it's so interesting the different receptions based on the background of the people that they were visiting and the history that had come before them. They were so nice to them at first, and again, we're going to read a little bit more. It wasn't always sunshine and rainbows, and we'll encounter that in the next week as things turn south or maybe turn sour a little bit in their things. So we're out of time for today. Thank you for the wonderful discussion. Remember, readings are going to be chapters 5 and 6. There may be some pieces I'll let you know when I post the homework later. The supplemental content will go more into other explorers that were leaving, that were part of the Spanish exploration, Spanish colonization of Central and South America, and we'll get more into those things and learn about other explorers that were important to the Age of Discovery beyond Christopher Columbus, people who sort of took what he had learned and carried it a little further to advance Spain a little bit more. So thank you again for all of the comments today, for the discussion. I love coming to this class. I really enjoy learning with you. I'm grateful for all of the comments and things that you guys are posting online. Keep up the good work. Next week, we'll have more of the same. Kai, I want to hear what your sister wanted you to talk about. So if you guys want to hear that, stick around. I'm going to stop recording. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time.